put them with the high group. It just gives them a little bit exposure and some motivation to try to be better. So I've done that a couple of times too, and I've noticed a difference in the kid. So set the stage. When you start your group, I always review the expectations. We put our books down flat, we stay together, we point to the words, and everybody stays together. And then I also preview the text, the title, have them point to pictures so that you are getting them to specifically look at certain things. Let them flip through and look at a couple of pages on their own just to think about what the story is going to be about and ask a few questions. Always review the title, author, and illustrator. You guys know that. One thing that I always do with small group is I keep it pretty fast-paced, because if you don't, then there's always one or two that wants to just wander. So I'm very fast-paced, and I'm very repetitive. So when we have the books out, I'm like, okay, everybody point to page 2, point to page 2, point to page 2. I'll say it 5 or 6 times until everybody's doing it. And if there's somebody that's still not doing it, I'll be like, thank you, this person, so-and-so, thank you, thank you, thank you, you're on page 2. And then finally, okay, finally everybody's on page 2. And that just keeps them focused and motivated. So the biggest thing that I do that I think shows has the most impact is I'm constantly teaching strategies. So, for example, always pointing and reading. That's the number one strategy. They're always pointing to their words, so that you know where they are and so that you know that they are with you. The biggest thing that I teach is to reread. Every single time we stop to sound out a word, you go back to the beginning of the sentence. Every time you stop to think about a sight word, you go back to the beginning of the sentence. You may read a sentence 6 times before you get through the whole sentence. But I tell them that we have to reread so that we don't forget what we read. Because if we stop to sound out a word and we keep going, we forgot the 5 words previous to that. So they may start to get, at the beginning when you are teaching that strategy, they might get like, oh, come on, why are we doing this? But they get it. And then I always say, reread, and I always say, point and read. And that keeps us together. That's like our cue, is everybody point and read. And then they stay together. It's very harmonious. So strategies. Whenever we stop for a sight word, I always say it, clap it, say it, like and, A-N-D, and. Sometimes I don't say it first, and I might put it in like a different rhythm, just so that they're not always hearing the same thing. Like what, I always go, W-H-A-T, what? And they're always like, they love that. So if you put a little groove into it sometimes and switch up the rhythms, they like that. But whenever I stop for a sight word, we will clap it out maybe 3 times until I see them all clapping it out. And then I'll say, okay, what does W-H-A-T spell? And they'll tell me what. And I say, how do you spell what? And then they'll spell it again for me. Like, okay, now go back and reread. Everybody point and read. And then it really works. It really works. So sometimes before we read the page, I tell them to look at the picture and point to some certain things. Or after we read the page, if like, cap is a word, I say, okay, everybody point to the cap. Or, I highlight a certain word that's on the page, and I tell them to point to it. And then I say, okay, point to the word cap, point to the picture cap, point to the word cap. Okay, so that the visual, the touching, and the saying works cohesively. So whenever you can tie in a verbal, a sight, and a touch, that's very powerful. you guys know to generally ask a question each page, whether it's about a word or it's about what's going to happen next, or who the page is about. And you want to try and emphasize retelling the page in their own words. Okay, now what did we just read? Tell me what you read. And then if they repeat the same sentence, okay, now try to tell me without reading the sentence. Tell me exactly what you read. What does that mean to you? And then most importantly, I think, teaching strategies is going to create independent readers. You only the lowest low groups do you want to do, like my turn, your turn, like repeat, and that's just to teach one-to-one correspondence. Once they get the one-to-one correspondence down, then you want to move into them becoming independent readers. Okay, sound out that word. And if they don't get sounding out the word, point to the word C-A-T. What sound does C make? What sound does A make? What sound does T make? Okay, now let's say those sounds one at a time. K, at. Okay, now say them faster. K, at. Now put it all together. So only the low groups do I do my turn, your turn. All the other groups, once they are able to sound out, I'm never reading for them. I never tell them what a word is. You always try to get them to sound it out. Unless it's a sight word that they don't know. If it's a sight word that you haven't come across, then yes, clap it, say it, tell them what the word is. But you always want to try at this age to create independent readers so that they have those skills. And you always tell them when you're teaching a strategy why they need to do this. And use the word strategy, because they need to understand that we're learning reading strategies, and we're going to take those reading strategies and we're going to use them at home by ourselves. So, and lastly, celebrate student success. I always try to, on every page, try to say something good about somebody at the table. Good job, that's great, you did it. Everybody, good job. So I always try to have a really positive mind frame at small groups, so that they are excited, so that they are into it, and so that they're listening. So that's about it. Quickly in the short time, but that's how I run it, and I've been doing that probably for about 9 years. These are the strategies that I use every single day, and I see a lot of growth. My kids pick it up quick, and that's